Greetings all, and welcome to Theater Workshop of Owensboro's Trinity Radio Players production of Murder at Yellowbanks. Adapted for radio by Richard Fish from the original story by Brett Mills, directed by Todd Reynolds and produced by Shane Devon and Tinkertone Studios. The Trinity Radio Players are sponsored by Limestone Bank, a firm financial future starts here, and by Greenwell Chisholm. See Greenwell Chisholm for all your printing and promotional needs. And now, Murder at Yellowbanks. When we left William Smeathers and Squire Duncan, it was a race to see who would arrive at the cabin first, friends and protectors or an angry mob. We rejoin the action as someone comes knocking at the door.
I'm the justice of the peace, and you're my prisoner, and we will settle this according to the law. I had hoped that you would answer some more of my infernal questions.
That's fine advice, Ben. Have your letter of the law. I just hope you don't get the both of us killed.
Stand back, William.
That's my brother, James and Felty Husk. It's the men from Yellowbanks.
Well, just get back there like I told you. Thank you. Now come inside, you men. All of you get in here now. Hurry. Mind what you say. I consider it testimony sworn by your intent in coming here.
James, I've never been so glad to see you as I am right now.
Are you all right, William? Mary's awfully worried for you. She nearly wouldn't let go of my arm until I promised I wouldn't come back without you.
Where are Mary and the children? You didn't let them go back to our place, did you?
They're all at my place. Molly, too. They can stay there as long as you need.
Thank you for that, Felty. I'm much obliged, and I'm grateful for the men you brought here with you. Now, how is Molly?
William, I wouldn't have known her by the look on her as she came running over to my place. She was sickly white, but her eyes were all red. She begged me to find James and make sure your family came to my place instead of yours. It was like trying to understand Babel. Molly was trembling so bad that I tried to lead her over to the fire. The second I touched her, she screamed, nearly went wild. My wife took charge of her and sent my oldest boy to find the doctor. I found James and Mary as quick as I could after that, thinking something must have happened to you.
He found us at the Berry place. By the time we got back to Felty's, Molly had calmed down enough to tell he and I about the keelboat coming in. She told us she'd left in a hurry and knew you wouldn't want Mary or the children there if you had to tell the crew to leave. Then she pleaded with us to make sure you were all right because she'd left you to deal with the boatmen. I never thought it was like Molly to be overly shocked by impolite behavior, but I know how rough the early crews can be. It's good that Molly never saw all the blood in the middle of your floor, then you know where to be found. I can't imagine how she'd react to that.
I couldn't exactly stay where I was when the dead man's crew came up to look for the missing captain. I hid back out in the garden long enough to leave you a message in the hollowed-out stump.
Now, I knew you'd leave some word, but it took me a while to find it. Once I read the words Pup Creek, I was sure you'd be here, and that I'd best be getting as many men as I could get here quicker than the boatmen. I'm not sure how much of a lead we managed. Somebody ought to keep watch at that window.
Out of the window.
I'll cover Ben's back door in case the boatmen try to flank us.
I'm keeping my rifle trained on the door up front here.
Good. William, I brought your rifle with me. I figured you'd need it.
Well, you figured wrong. Ben won't let me handle it, or any other, until this mess gets cleared up. Nice and legal.
That's correct. While I appreciate that all you men have mustered here with sense and skill for armed defense, I'll have to insist that you remember that you've come here to defend not only your friend William Smeathers, but law and order as well. If you haven't, then you can just all clear out of here right now.
I've already agreed, and no one here's going to cross you.
Thank you for your assurance, William. Now maybe I can get you to answer a few more questions.
Go ahead then, Ben, if that's going to help you that much.
Well, from what I've heard your brother and Mr. Husk say, I have to ask, how does your sister's unfortunate condition relate to the death of the keelboat captain?
There's nothing about Molly that has anything to do with him dying, Ben. She stayed at home with me when Mary and the children left for the party at the Berry place. When the keelboat came along, she tried to help me deal with its landing party. All of a sudden, boatmen were as thick as flies on my property. There were 7 of them, Ben, and the captain, he was the biggest of the lot. Poor Molly wasn't ready to deal with men like that. When she couldn't take any more of it, she ran off. I figured she'd go to Felty's place. It all must have worked on her nerves as she went. That's the end of it, Ben, at least as far as Molly goes.
Well, just what was it in the boat crew's behavior that might have upset your sister that much?
They weren't for mixed company at all. They didn't think much of us around here to begin with, and they started in with the ugly jokes and took to singing a river song unfit for a woman's ear. They even clamored for a drink. It may be a tavern, but they didn't have the manners not to ask while Molly was around. It's no wonder to me that she got shook by an ordeal like that.
I see. However, I take it that the behavior of the crew in your sister's presence put you at further odds with the late Captain Norris.
When Molly was gone, I let Norris and his men know. I didn't appreciate such bad manners from men in front of any women, much less my sister. I don't imagine any of them liked that much, but most of them took correction and conducted their business like grown men from then on. All but Norris left after that.
So Norris remained and then became confrontational.
That's exactly what happened. He'd done some bragging about being a fighter back in New Orleans. I guess he felt insulted when I had to remind them, him especially, how men need to behave around a decent woman. He did step outside for a time, and I thought perhaps he wanted to calm himself, but apparently he accomplished just the opposite. He would not let it be. After his men left, he came back and even followed me into my home from the stand. Then I had to insist that he get back to his keelboat and leave. That's when push came to shove, Ben. I've already told you what happened after that.
Ben, surely you can see that William was in the right to stand up for his sister and defend himself in his own home.
Well, that may be, but the law requires that I consider both sides of a dispute before I refer it to a court, or not. I mean, as reasonable as William makes his actions sound, I still have to hear the keelboat crew's side of certain details.
I think y'all about to get your chances at being. There are more lights coming through the trees and headed this way.
William, you stand back all the way now, and you men stand in front of him. And all of you be quiet and let me do the talking. You hear? Hello, I'm Squire Benjamin Duncan, Justice of the Peace for these parts, and this is my rifle. Who am I addressing, please?
We're from a keelboat up from New Orleans, Squire Duncan. Our captain, Andrew Norris, has been murdered by William Smeathers of Yellowbanks. The Smeathers ran off, leaving us to find Captain Norris dead with no accounting for it. We hear he would have come up this way. If Smeathers is inside, you'd best turn him out to us. We'll take the murderer by force if we have to.
Well, William Smeathers, he is here, Mr. Hawser, but, well, he's turned himself into the law. And that's me, to begin the process of truly and legally determining the circumstances and cause of your captain's death.
If you'll just turn Smeathers over to us, we'll leave peaceably, Squire. An eye for an eye is all the law that a murderer deserves.
Well, I can't do that, so you're just going to have to hear me out. You have armed men outside. There are armed men inside as well, front and back. Any attempt to take the accused by force can only lead to bloodshed. By the same token, I advise the men inside here that any attempt to drive the accusers away and disregard the accusation can only lead to bloodshed too. However, we can all decide to be ruled by the law instead and live to see the sunrise.
Oh, don't listen to him, Hawser. He's the law here and Smeathers' friend to boot. He'll just let Smeathers go.
No, I won't. William Smeathers and I, we are acquaintances, but here I represent the law for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Let the law work. I mean, we hang murderers in Kentucky once they've been convicted. Now, I've heard Smeathers' side explain things, and I want to have a couple of you who were with Norris today come inside so I can weigh details from you. Both sides are necessary to the process of law. Now, will you and any other you choose enter peacefully to level a charge against Smeathers? By making a charge, you'll continue the process that leads to a trial. Trials are the way civilized men hold criminal defendants accountable for guilt.
Oh no, Hawser. We're Captain Norris's crew. We have the right to hang the murderer.
Or just say yes and we can all rush the door as they open it.
You'll get us all killed, Skiff. I say burn them out of there. That's the way to do this.
That's enough. You damn fools want to get us all killed? Besides, what Squire Duncan says makes sense. And I believe what he says about the law being at work here. Snags, you come in with me. So be it, Squire Duncan. 2 of us are ready to come in. The rest of us will stand clear. Let the men inside do the same. We'll swear to all we say as the truth.
We'll consider it sworn.
I'm Hawser. This is Snags.
Thank you, gentlemen. You've done the right thing. We'll need more light to work with now. Felty, would you light those other lanterns? Just a moment, gentlemen. I need to get my book. Here we are. Now, Mr. Hawser, Mr. Snags, I invite you to take a close look at this record book of mine. You'll see that each page contains my notation of charged disputes and that this very book contains notations that go back at least 2 years.
It appears to, yes.
What of it?
I am required to present this book with these notations to the prosecutor's office in Hartford at the start of each new court term. Now, I will write the charge you wish to make against Smeathers in this book on a clean page. It cannot be ignored because it must be reviewed.
And it can't be tampered with. Or there'd be suspicion about all these other notations too, and you wouldn't want that.
Yes, exactly. Now, for the record, what charge do you wish to make against William Smeathers?
We make the charge of murder. Our captain, Andrew Norris, was murdered by William Smeathers.
Well, the charge is so noted on this date. William Smeathers, I place you under arrest on this charge of murder. Do you understand the nature of the charge against you?
Yes. There's no truth to it, though.
Well, you've had your say, so you can keep quiet now. I have questions for you 2 gentlemen. First, were there 7 boatmen in the landing party met by Smeathers and his sister yesterday afternoon, and why so many?
There were 7 of us, including Captain Norris.
It's a long trip from New Orleans, Squire. We all needed something Smeathers might have to sell us.
At what point, if any, did you realize that the crew's behavior, particularly that of Captain Norris, might have greatly upset Molly Smeathers?
She never was. She fixed us food and hot cider. She was nice to all of us, especially Captain Norris.
Well, I thought she even fancied the captain. She danced a tune with him. Smeathers can't deny that.
William doesn't have to. I saw Molly after she left the stand. She was terrified by all of you, especially that captain of yours.
Be quiet, James Smeathers, before you wind up facing a contempt charge yourself. However, I will ask if either of you deny that Molly Smeathers left your presence in haste.
She explained about doing an errand for a neighbor and left. It didn't seem sudden to me.
She left before you did?
She did.
So when the 6 of you crew members returned to the boat, was the captain with you or anywhere aboard the keel boat?
He left ahead of us, intending to come back. To make sure everything was paid up, that is. But no, he wasn't with us coming back to the boat or on it when we got back.
So Smeathers doesn't deny being the last person with Norris alive or fighting him. However, just to be clear, none of you boatmen actually saw Smeathers deal Captain Norris a deadly blow.
No, we found him dead. Snags and I done that when we come back.
When he wasn't on the boat and he didn't come back, well, we figured we'd check the stand, but there wasn't nobody there, so we went up to the house.
The door was open, and when we looked in, That's where we found the captain, dead, on the floor.
And Smeathers run off. Leastways, there wasn't nobody around.
All right. Now, everyone, pay close attention. I have a legal decision to make, and you will all know that it's a legal decision because no one will be entirely happy with it. The charge brought is murder. Based on circumstances, certain disputed facts, and the general seriousness of a man's death, I'm ordering you, William Smeathers, to present yourself to the grand jury convened in Hartford when it meets next, and to stand trial upon any indictment returned against you. However, based upon your family's need for you between this time and that, you will be released under escort to the extent of Yellowbanks, effective at daylight. Your release is also conditioned upon the presentation of some significant bond or of surety, for your later appearances in court. What do you offer?
I can offer the stand. Jesse Potts, you've been interested in my stand for some time now. If you'll make out an offer to buy at the price we discussed last, then I'll sign it over as my bond. Either way this case comes out, the stand will be yours, and that's a promise.
All I need is paper and a pen and ink.
Well, they're here on the desk, Mr. Potts, but let me use them first. Mr. Hawser, I'm writing out the date, place, and time that the grand jury will convene for its next session. Any jury trial will follow soon after that. Now, I'm asking you to carry this note as proof that there will be a court proceeding, and it's also a reminder to be there to testify against Smeathers. Can you and Mr. Snags please convince the other men outside to leave peacefully now and return to that at that appointed time?
They'll do what I say. We'll set up for Louisville at first light. There won't be trouble from us as long as these men don't come after us here.
Well, I assure you they will all stay here until the sun's bright in the sky. They'll escort Smeathers back to Yellowbanks at that time to make sure nothing happens to him either. Understand?
We do.
Then Godspeed to you both.
Thank you, Ben. You saved my life.
That may be, William, but you're likely to be on trial for that very life soon. So if I were you, I'd find a defense attorney who could beat young John Davis over in Hartford. And if not, I'd start praying.
As it happens, I know one lawyer who can do just that.
I've been to Yellowbanks once.
All rise. I said all rise.
That's better. This court is now in session. The Honorable Henry P. Broadnax presiding. All right, you can sit down now.
Let the clerk record the date. It's Thursday, April 13th, in the year of our Lord, 1809. This morning, I'm calling the case of the Commonwealth of Kentucky against William Smeathers of Yellowbanks. The record reflects that Smeathers has been indicted by a grand jury on the charge of murder in the death of a human being, one Andrew Norris, late of New Orleans. Let the record also reflect that this matter has been held over daily since April 10th, and that Smeathers has previously entered a plea of not guilty for himself. Is the Commonwealth ready to proceed with picking a jury? Bailiff, where is the Commonwealth attorney?
He'll be here as soon as possible, Your Honor. He left word that he had an earlier hearing for a case up in the courtroom upstairs.
Send someone upstairs to get him. Tell him he has a trial or a contempt charge waiting in this courtroom, my courtroom, depending on how fast he gets down here.
Yes, Your Honor.
In the meantime, Mr. Smeathers, seeing you alone before this court today no doubt reminds us both of the many annoyances I've had when you've represented yourself in court before. Don't think that I would allow such things to color my ability to preside at your trial here today. I only mention them to impress on you how different this situation really is. You've never faced a charge or contended a case this serious before. I urge you not to represent yourself, nor even to consider it. If that's been your plan or only recourse, this court can press a reasonably capable
Excuse me, Judge Broadnax, Your Honor, but I've got myself a lawyer. He's kind of particular, though. He'd like to know that he's got permission to come up here with us first.
This case has been called. I'm already waiting on the prosecutor, so I suggest that the defense attorney come up and state his name for the record before I have to wait for him to.
If it pleases the court, I represent William Smeathers. For the record, my name is Davies. Joseph Hamilton Davies.
Oh, gosh.
He's gonna be...
I can't see this here.
Order! Settle down, you people. I'll have order in this courtroom.
Your Honor, please excuse my informal manner of dress today. I wanted to concentrate on what's at stake today, so I tried going unrecognized as long as possible. And these overalls certainly helped.
Well, you certainly chose the right attire to blend in with the locals. Mr. Davies, you are aware that your brother is the Commonwealth Attorney for Ohio County and that he is prosecuting this very case?
Of course, Your Honor. I'm very aware of John's career.
Is the younger Mr. Davies aware that you are here today to oppose him at trial?
No, he isn't. Is that a problem, Your Honor?
Well, not for me it isn't, but I believe the Commonwealth Attorney's coming now.
My apologies for being late, Your Honor. Joe, what are you doing here?
Hello, John. I've come in defense of justice today.
What? You've come to represent Smeathers today? You're my opposing counsel?
I know it comes as a surprise, John. Still, I'm pleased with the way you've described it. I am your opposing counsel. I'll do that to the best of my ability. However, I'll never be an opposing brother to you. No hard feelings between us here, then?
Of course not, Joe, never.
You gentlemen will excuse me for disturbing your family reunion, but I have called the case, and that man right there is on trial for his life. Are the prosecutor and defense attorney ready to see if they can get along that well during jury selection?
The Commonwealth is ready, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the defense stands ready.
Members of the jury pool, please come forward and be seated if your name is called. George Bell.
Call George Bell.
Do I get you another sandwich, Mr. Davies? It's no trouble. I could hardly believe that my brother's luck righted itself so fast when you sent word about representing him. You had everybody in that courtroom, especially the jury, spellbound by the way you handled those so-called witnesses for the Commonwealth this morning.
Well, thank you for the compliment, James. And the sandwich. However, let's not indulge in overconfidence. My ability isn't luck at all. Your brother served on a land commission I had dealings with last year, and he was a man to remember. That commission finalized my titles to about 1,000 acres of land near Yellow Banks itself. I remembered that, too.
So did I. James, I'll have another sandwich, too, as long as you're offering. Thank you for escorting Mary and Molly here today. I'll thank Mary for the food directly. She certainly packed this basket heavy.
I think fretting over the food was Mary's way of trying not to worry about what happens if you get found guilty. You'd be proud of your bunch back at home today. John's looking after the whole place, and Archie wanted to help John so much that he never pestered us about coming to see a real live trial. Young Mary's doing chores so Betsy can do the cooking today, and that let Molly come along with Mary. I don't see why Molly wanted to be at the trial so bad, but she just wouldn't stay home.
I have a fine family that depends on me, Joe. That's part of why I'm here today. And that's all of why I have to be found not guilty.
Yes, William, your responsibility for the safety of your family is the key to your defense. I hope that one of my approaches to establishing that for the jury won't be problematic for you and yours today.
It should be simple enough. This afternoon, I'll take the stand and tell the jury what happened, and that should be the end of it.
Hear me out, William. Your testimony will sway the minds of the jury, but I believe an account from your sister could do even more. Consider it providence that she's unmarried and can testify for you without her husband's permission. We both know, I think, that if she had testified before the grand jury, you would have never been indicted. Her words could clutch the jurors' hearts, and they'd find in your favor by acclamation.
I've told you before, Molly's not testifying to anything about that day. She wasn't there when Norris died. Nobody was but Norris and me.
I would limit her testimony to what she did see before she left. More importantly, she'll give a true voice to her fear and revulsion at the boatman's behavior.
I said no.
Besides, Molly isn't in any kind of shape to testify, Mr. Davies. You saw for yourself how skittish she got this morning when people started crowding into the courtroom. Seeing those boatmen again was almost more than she could tolerate. Well, she knew they'd come to testify against her brother, but she couldn't once let them look at her in the eye. I was actually relieved that she decided to sit out in the hallway with Mary before old Broadnax called things to order.
I had to look for them when Broadnax finally called a halt to eat. Molly had them both over in the darkest corner of the hall. She cringed any time a man came near, much less try to ask her a question. Mary's taking her for a walk, hoping that looking at flowers and such will settle Molly enough to get through the rest of the day. She's no witness that I'd want today, even if she wasn't my sister. I'll ask James to take them back to Yellowbanks this minute if I have to, but Molly's not going to testify.
I understand your feelings. I'll apologize in advance for pressing the issue further, but as your attorney, I'm obliged to be sure you understand the advantages and disadvantages of the tactics I suggest. The case against you is circumstantial. The jury will boil it down to what your intention was as you fought with Norris and as the knife drew blood. By testifying yourself, you run the risk of being tripped up about your intention on the stand. As unusual as it may be for a woman to testify in court, there is a convincing power to it. I believe a jury hears a woman's intuition fully echoed in her sworn testimony. You need not testify at all, William. Molly's testimony would make Norris's intention the bigger ripple for the jury as they pool their thoughts on your guilt or innocence. They'd sympathize with Molly's fear now, drawn back to its source. Her disposition today is the lingering of an encounter that no doubt sent her fleeing from your home, fearing for her safety as a person and her good name. The Commonwealth attorney could never contend with that, even if he's my brother.
I've heard you out, Mr. Joseph Hamilton Davies. Now, you'd best listen to me. My sister Molly will not testify about anything that happened with Norris and his crew, not now, not ever. I'm not going to say it again. James, help me pack this basket up and we'll clear out. Joe here needs time to himself to clear his head about all these fine legal tactics of his. Joe, just do me a favor. Come up with an argument that's going to win that jury for me. I know you can do it with or without any particular witness.
So be it, William. But mind yourself carefully on the stand. You'll have to allow me a certain rhetorical flair in my closing to capture the jury's attention in the right way.
That's different, Joe. What you say is what you say, and I'll know you'll say the right words.
And therefore, gentlemen of the jury, the Commonwealth asks you to find the defendant guilty of the charge against him, guilty of murder. Kentucky is no longer a place where the only order is any one man's ability to kill the other when two men quarrel. Nor can it be a place where the law is not applied equally, even when the man who lives is one of our own, but the man who dies is not. The Commonwealth is truly woven into the fabric of this nation now. The law and order that rules men here must be available to all and be something more than William Smeathers' temperament. I submit the case to you and ask you to return a verdict of guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. We'll proceed to the defense closing. The other Mr. Davies may now address the jury.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gentlemen, hang the marauder, hang the outlaw, hang the assassin, hang the murderer. Proof or no proof, let the hangman proceed upon his mission of strangulation. That is what the Commonwealth would have you do by your verdict. Now, I do completely support all that you heard from the opposing attorney regarding law and order. Yet, the law itself established on greater principles we all hold dear as well. Yes, if one man intends to kill another and acts on that intention, then there is law there to punish. Yet, if the same death takes place under circumstances that the law does make provision for, then the so-called murderer is looked upon with the fullness of mercy. The law is meant to be a protecting hedge around the life and liberty of individual citizens. That life and liberty belongs to the individual, as does the right to defend them. These things may be legally defended even at the cost of another man's life, as long as premeditated malice is absent in doing so. A killing in the heat of an instinctive moment, absent malice, is manslaughter, not murder. My client is not charged with manslaughter. A killing necessary in self-defense or defense of home and family is not a crime. With no malice proven, such an act becomes virtue instead. You have not heard one eyewitness who saw Smeathers inflict the wounds that killed Norris. Mark that no man saw it, and that is a fact. You are left to decide the truth of a circumstantial case. Yes, the dead man's body was found on the floor of my client's home. That isn't evidence that the Commonwealth compelled from testimony from you. It's a fact that William Smeathers honestly put forward himself. Such candor only supports my client's complete veracity. By all accounts, this Norris was a giant of a man, and you heard members of his own crew attest that they'd never seen him beaten in a fight, a practice that Norris enjoyed. William Smeathers is a man with some sense, and as ruggedly stout as he may be, it simply isn't reasonable that by himself he would attack a younger, bigger, stronger man who had a keelboat full of crew to rally for him. I suggest those circumstances tell you that Norris must have been the aggressor from the beginning to the end. Smeathers met this man and his early crew with civility and hospitality. In return, Norris was insulting. All too soon, foul manners and rough behavior were too much for Smeathers' maiden sister to hear without risking infamy upon her spotless name. The others with Norris repented when reproached and left. But Norris did not. We've heard that Norris did not return to his keelboat, but we know where he ended up. I suggest those circumstances allow you to conclude that an angered Norris waited for his opportunity to return, now uninvited, and this time into the sanctity of the Smeathers home. You all can reason how the earlier aggression of Norris's words easily arose into violence. You have heard how he liked fighting. Under all the circumstances of this case, if and only if Smeathers directed the blade that killed Norris, then it was done in the holy causes of religion and virtue. And the King of Heaven straightened the arm that drove that point home. Gentlemen, William Smeathers proudly calls himself a leather stocking. It has been men like that who have made this Commonwealth, nay, the whole of the great Mississippi Valley, safe for settlement, for commerce and trade, for women and children, and the niceties of civilized life. All these men have asked in return is the ability to defend what they have attained. Any one man's ability to defend his own is a defense of the right of all men to do the same. Today, the Commonwealth has asked you for the life of William Smeathers, who bravely exercised that right. I ask that you maintain for Smeathers and yourselves the the noble defense that the government has the audacity to attempt to deny through you today. I ask that you find William Smeathers not guilty of the charge against him for your own sakes, as well as his. Were you to find him guilty, your consciences would draw you all to the execution, so that you must then take one last look upon a martyr for peace and security of your own homes, your own families. Do not return to those homes wishing you had the courage of this noble and true man. Show him and the Commonwealth that courage today by declaring that William Smeathers is not guilty. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Gentlemen of the jury, this case is now yours to deliberate. You will have the applicable law before you. The bailiff will hand you the book and mark the page. I charge you to remember that the Commonwealth bears the burden of proof to a standard beyond a reasonable doubt. If you deliberate that, beyond a reasonable doubt, the defendant did kill the deceased with malice aforethought, then you must find the defendant guilty of the charge submitted to you. If, however, you deliberate doubt, in mercy you must extend every benefit of that doubt in favor of the defendant. If you determine that any doubt be a reasonable doubt of the defendant's intended malice, then you must find the defendant not guilty of the submitted charge. You will now retire to your deliberations.
So nervous. I don't know. It's going to be nice. What's going to happen? Why do we even have this trial?
Order! I will have order in this court before continuing. Quiet there. When a jury decides they've reached their verdict, that verdict's going to be received with solemn respect. Even when it's been fully deliberated in 10 minutes. Everyone sit down, be quiet, and we'll get on with this. Now, Mr. Foreman, has the jury indeed reached its verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
And is the verdict unanimous?
It is, Your Honor.
Very well. Stand up there, William Smeathers. Stand up now. Mr. Foreman, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus William Smeathers, how say you?
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
Order! Enough, I say. Quiet down, all of you. I'll find so many of you for contempt that we'll have enough money to build a new courthouse. Order! That will be quite enough of that. Now, this court thanks the jury for its service. Mr. Smeathers, the jury has rendered its verdict of not guilty. It is considered by this court that you are acquitted of the charge of murder aforesaid, and you may go hence entirely free and without delay. This court is adjourned.
William, William, thank heaven. I was worried when the jury came back in so quickly, and now I'm so relieved that my heart's fluttering. William, let's go home. Mr. Davies, I can't thank you enough for defending my husband, and you're more than welcome to come to our place tonight. We're going to celebrate that William's been restored to us.
Of course I'll be there, Mrs. Smeathers. Please excuse me if I arrive late. I may have some fences to mend with my brother. I hope you'll not think of him too harshly. He only had a job to do.
Yes, Yes, he did, I suppose, but he nearly did it too well. Look, William, James is bringing Molly over.
William, please tell Molly yourself that you won. Ever since she heard the verdict, she's been shaking her head and crying. Maybe she'll believe it hearing it from you.
Molly, look at me. Come on, Molly, it's all right. Now just look at me. There are no chains, no bars, no hangman's noose waiting for me. We can all go home now. It's over, Molly. I'm free and clear, so it's over.
You're free, William. I'm thankful for that and grateful for all you did for me. Still, it's only over for you. It will be months. Oh, William, as long as I live now, it won't be over for me.
Mary, you go on and keep Molly company now.
Molly, it's all right now. You come with me.
What did she mean by that?
Never mind. The day's been too much for her, that's all. James, please get them to the wagon. I'll be along directly. Joe, thank you for all you did. That argument of yours was one for the ages. I'm much obliged, and repaying you starts tonight at my place.
Think nothing of it, William. If I were you, what I would be thinking about is leaving Kentucky sometime soon. The men of Norris's crew will be up and down the river again, and this verdict notwithstanding, the story of your killing a boatman will make its way with them to other boatmen. Now, you'll have Jesse Potts' money for your stand, and that was well done and timely, I'm thinking. And you have your life back. But keeping it now probably calls for a change of scenery.
That's good advice, Joe. I'm headstrong enough not to take it for a while, but I suppose I will eventually.
I hope your sister recovers in due course from the delicate condition this sad affair has left on her. Take care of her, William, and take care of yourself.
And Molly will be all right. I think it's her that needs a change from Yellowbanks first. We have a sister named Jane married to a man named Daniel Grass up in Indiana. There are places beyond Mississippi that need men like me, and sooner or later that's where I'll be. I'll see you later tonight. Thanks again.
There goes a leather stocking to the last.
You've been listening to the Trinity Radio Players production of Murder at Yellowbanks, starring Jeremiah Hinson as William Smeathers, with Mike Quig, Terrie Crowe, Ava Lanham, Maddox Meyer, Winston Hulsey, Trinity Moore, Jennifer Hendricks Wright, Troy Duncan, Pablo Gallestegui, Adam Pryor, J.C. White, Marque Payne, Robert Zambrano, Jim Payne, Gray Hurt, Brian Smith, Peter Hall, George Hall, Brett Mills, Joe Barry, and Reed Roberts, and featuring Foley sound effects by Tony Brewer, incidental music provided by Evelyn Champion, with accordion music by Mr. James Wells, produced by our friends at Tinkertone Studios, engineered and edited by Shane Devon. The Trinity Radio Players are brought to you by our sponsors, Greenwell Chisholm. See Greenwell Chisholm for all your printing and promotional needs, and by Limestone Bank. A firm financial future starts here. And the Kentucky Arts Council, the state arts agency providing American Rescue Plan funds to Theater Workshop of Owensboro, Inc., with federal funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. Goodbye until next time.